This demonstration shows how to record macros and how to apply them to multiple files to automize data processing. In this example, I will open an EEG recording, perform some basic processing, create averages and save them out to a file, and I want to repeat these steps on multiple recordings. To record the data processing steps that I want to be replayed on other data files, I can go to the Macro tab and create a new macro by clicking the New Macro icon. And this macro will process and average and save the averages, so I will call the macro create averages. Once I click save, the macro recorder is now in recording mode, so now all of the steps that I am doing will be recorded to the macro. And I will perform some basic processing steps, like I will add a baseline correction, I will add a filtering step to apply a bandpass filter, and this is all the basic processing I want to do at this point, and I want to go straight to creating averages. I am opening the events dialog, and in this file I have two event types, type 1 and type 2, and I want to create averages for both types. So I will select the type 1 event in the first event tab, go to the second event tab and select the type 2s. Now before clicking average, I might want to apply some threshold criteria to exclude epochs that exceed a certain amplitude. And for this I can open the threshold criteria dialog, and here in the channel selector, select that I want to analyze all channels. I want to use this amplitude threshold of -50 to +50 microvolts. And now to apply this threshold, I need to scan the events. And since this will be running unsupervised anyway, I can uncheck the update display option and just click scan events. And now I can apply the voltage rejection criterion, which reduces my number of events from currently 206 to 147 in this case. Okay, now I have removed a few epochs, and now I can generate averages by clicking the averaging button. I can switch to a butterfly plot, and these are the two averages for the type 1s and the type 2s. And now I want to save these averages out to a file, and I can do this by going to File, Functional Data, Save Data, and I can call the result file viscpt1 for the file name of the file that we are currently working with, and I am just calling the file averages. Click Save. And this is everything I want to do in the macro, so I can stop the macro recorder now. Now the macro can be applied to other datasets. However, since we are generating files in this macro, we should take a look at the macro code and take a look at the file names that are being generated. And we can take a look at the macro code by right-clicking and selecting Edit. This brings up a text editor that shows us all the steps that we have recorded to this macro. And we don't want to change anything to the processing steps, we only want to look at the steps that actually export files and generate file names. And here we can see the file path that was recorded from when we were saving our averages. Now if we would replay this macro, the macro would want to create an averages file in the end that has exactly the same name that we have already used. And this is of course not very helpful if we want to generate individual average files for each and every file that we are working with. So we should tell Curry to create this file name dynamically based on the file that we are working with. And we can do this by using field codes. The field codes can be found in the user guide, and I am pressing F1 to open the user guide for the macro playback options. And I will scroll through the user guide to see where file names are being discussed. And here we can also see the field codes that we can use to create file names automatically. Maybe we want to generate the average files in the same folder that our EEG file is placed in. And for this we can use the field code *df. So we can go back to our macro code, and instead of using this folder path, we can use *df, which will expand to the folder that our EEG data file is in. Then we may also want the averages file to contain the name of the folder that we are working with, and this can be done by using the field code *dn. So instead of viscpt1, I am using *dn. And then I just want to add the word averages to know that the file that we are saving here contains the averages. We could use further information also from the study or from the image data or the current date or time, or we could also just number the files automatically, and we can use all of these field codes to generate individual file names. But in this case, *ef and *dn is enough to generate average files that are in the same folder as our EEG data file and that also contain the same base name as our EEG data file. Okay, now I am saving this macro. I can close the editor window. I can also close the study that we used to record the macro. And to replay the macro on multiple files, I can select the macro in my list of macros and then press the loop over files option. And I've already created the macro using this file, but I want the macro to run on this file and also on this file. And I can multi-select files here by holding the Control button on the keyboard and selecting multiple files. And if those files that you want the macro to run on are in several subfolders, you can use the search functionality here to, for example, only list files with a certain file extension and then use the multi-selection from the search result. Now I'm pressing open. I will tell Curry that it can automatically detect the file parameters if there is a file in the macro replay that has not been loaded into Curry yet. If you are unsure, you can also use the show import dialog option, but to have everything run unsupervised, we can use the auto detect option. And now Curry is opening the first file, creating the averages, saving them, and this is the second file that I have selected. Averages are again being created and saved. And now the macro execution has finished. And if we now take a look at the folder that contains the files that we have been working with, we can see that for the viscpt2 file, we now have a file that contains the viscpt2 averages, and also for the viscpt3 file, we have a file that contains the viscpt3 averages. And this concludes this short demo on how to use the macro recorder.